Hey y'all, and welcome back to the Clothes for Maintenance podcast. I'm your host, Natasha Weston, and I'm really excited about today's episode. I think I've been taking the long way home, and I didn't even realize it at the time. Over the years, I've shared much of my story, but never sat down to share in context of how it all connects to who I am now. Looking back, there was a version of me who left for New York in 2009, thinking that that was the destination. This version of me trying to strive and figure out everything on my own. And then there was a turning point where everything I thought I was supposed to be started shifting. And now as I'm preparing to go back to New York again, I realize I'm not the same person who left. I actually had to take the long way here. So today I just want to take you back to the beginning, share my story, but from a different perspective as a whole new woman. And I hope that it inspires you and motivates you to not throw away any chapters of your life, but to understand that all things work together. Let's get started.
Take a moment, breathe again, lay your worries down, my friend. Life gets heavy, hearts need grace. Welcome to Clothes for Maintenance. Clothes for maintenance.
Hey, you guys, it's me, Natasha Weston, and welcome back to the Clothes for Maintenance podcast. I am so excited about today's episode, but before we get into it, I'm really excited to be back sitting on the couch with you guys. We took about a month hiatus from recording new episodes, from posting new episodes, because your girl just needed a break. And honestly, it just kind of spoke to the whole mission behind everything that I'm about. I come from hustle, right? Sleep when you're dead, all of that. Y'all know the drill here at Clothes for Maintenance. And so it's really nice sometimes for you guys to see me taking a break. And so the break was actually not planned. I just so happened to have a whole lot of things going on, and I wasn't very inspired to post new episodes. And y'all always know I'm never just going to post for the sake of consistency. I'm going to post when I actually have something of value to say. And so since I am planning a trip back to the city that I believe made me, this week, I decided that I wanted to actually share my story. As many of you know, this is not my first podcast. This is my second podcast, my second solo podcast. My last podcast, I retired maybe like 3 years ago after we reached 100 episodes. And I spoke a lot about my story in that episode. But I think right now I'm kind of having like a full circle moment as I prepare to go to New York City next week for a couple of reasons, which I will share with you guys and a lot of my content coming up. And I realized that the difference between me sharing my story then on my previous podcast and now is that it is a full circle moment. There was so much that happened when I think back to 2009 when I took a one-way train to New York City to pursue a career in fashion styling. And as I reminisce on my journey and where I am today, there's just so many messages and lessons that I have learned. And that is primarily what I want to share with you in this episode. And so if you are in a rebuilding stage, if you feel like you've been doing what you've been doing for decades or for years, and you're wondering like how it all may come together or why all of the different seasons and chapters in your story actually do matter, then this episode is for you. And so I have been dying to turn the mic back on and just kind of share. And I think this episode is a little bit different from what we typically do here, but I do think it's very important, especially for those of you who have recently found me on social media or at an event or wherever. I think me sharing my story now matters a little bit differently. And so really excited to get into it with you in this episode. So let's go back to about 2009. I had just finished the college experience. No, I did not graduate, but I decided that I did not want to go to nursing school anymore. And so at this time, my mom was living in Greenville, South Carolina. I was going to school up in Pendleton, South Carolina, which is a very small town right next to Clemson. The goal was to get all of my prerequisites at this tech school and then merge in with Clemson's nursing program. And thinking back, I really think that that was just God allowing me to have a college experience. I met one of my best friends there. We're still best friends. And I really was able to just experience that part of life. When a light bulb went off that, girl, you don't even like blood. Why are you going to nursing school? And I dropped out. My mom was super supportive. My dad was super supportive. And that was, I think, now looking back, the first time that I placed knowing that there was more for me in life over how much money a nurse can make, right? I went to school to be a nurse because I had a cousin that was a travel nurse. I knew a lot of people that were nurses, and nurses made good money. I was told that if you were a nurse, then you had guaranteed job security. And so that was naturally the route that I went to take. When in the back of my mind, deep down, I wanted to be in the fashion industry, didn't know how. So here I am in Greenville, South Carolina in 2009 on my mom's living room couch, stealing Wi-Fi from the neighbor in the McDonald's up the street. And I just remember being on her couch, not having a plan, not knowing what I was going to do next. Most people that I went to high school with were in college, doing things, getting married, having babies, the traditional white picket fence life. And I had the complete opposite. And I felt like for a moment that I had wasted all of those years in college to not leave with a degree, to not leave with the life that society tells us that we're supposed to have at my age. Actually, in 2009, my colleagues were getting ready to graduate college. And so there was a sense of feeling left behind, a sense of feeling like I was just doomed, didn't have like a bright future, until I came across a book by Kim Maxwell. And it was all about how to be a fashion stylist. Now, in high school, I really wanted to go to fashion design school. But because I had saw no one that had taken that course, I had saw no one saying, you know, when it's time to fill out college applications, oh, I'm going to fill out this application to the Fashion Institute. I never heard that. And so I was like, well, let me just take the safe route. And I went for at first business administration, and then, like I just said, nursing. And so here I am on my mom's couch, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do next. And that original dream of being in the fashion industry sparked again. And so in doing my research, I come across this book, like I just said, about fashion styling. And that was the first time that I realized that I could actually make a career out of doing something that I wanted to do. There was someone that I could look at that time that did what I wanted to do. I just didn't know that it was actually a career. So I start doing all of the research. I start following the tips that she mentions in this book. And in the book, she talked about internships. And so now here I am in South Carolina. And at that time, I didn't see South Carolina as like a fashion state or a place where I could actually network and build a career. And so my first mind said, I got to get out of here. How was I going to get out of here? I didn't have a job. I didn't have no money. So I shared with my parents that I wanted to pursue fashion. Again, my parents have always been super supportive of anything that I wanted to do. And so I'm super grateful for a supportive support system from the very beginning. So in doing my research, I come across a couple of opportunities. One was interning with Mo and Keita. I don't know if y'all remember the show that used to come on, I think VH1, the TO show. They at the time had a beauty brand. I locked in with them. I had also had an opportunity to work with, at that time, 50 Cent and G Unit's fashion stylist. That opportunity never came through because by the time I got to New York, the opportunity was just off the table. Long story short, short story long, the door opened for me at BET Networks. I had reached out to their director at that time, told her that I was interested in the fashion industry. I was coming from South Carolina, but I was not in college. And at that time, it was really strict. I don't know if it still is now, but they were really strict on if a corporation gave you an internship, you had to be earning a college credit. But I was very transparent from the beginning. I told her I'm not in college, but I would love to get the experience. And so Not even having this confirmed, I reach out to my dad. I tell him what I want to do. I tell him about the potential opportunity. He gives me the money to take a one-way train to New York City. Thank God my aunt lived in the city. And so I was able to reach out to her. She allowed me to come and sleep on her couch. And so, needless to say, I go to New York without any confirmed plans. I reach out to BET's network's wardrobe director at that time, and she calls me in for an interview. I get the internship on 106 and Park in the wardrobe department. Hey, I know we're in the middle of an episode, but I wanted to pause because I have something exciting to tell you. I'm building a space, not a program, not a course, not another thing you have to qualify for. Just a place where we can actually walk life together, the real stuff, career, faith, the messy middle of figuring out who you are and where the heck you're going. It's called Among Us. And honestly, I am not going to sit here and pretend it's all figured out and all mapped out, because it's not. We are building this in real time together. But here's how we're starting. Old school. No cameras, no pressure to show up looking like anything. You just dial in once a month and we figure out life together. That's it. Think close friends energy. You know, the kind of group where you can say, I don't know what I'm doing, and nobody flinches. We're just in it together. Doors are open right now for founding members, and to get in, it's a one-time entry fee of just $10. That's it. $10 to be a part of something that's actually real. Go to natashaweston.com/Among Us to grab your spot. I'll have everything you need over there. Okay, let's get back into the episode. That opened a lot of doors for me. And now that I think about it, it's just like so funny. I think about opportunities I had then and how I could have leveraged them better. But what I will say is that being in New York exposed me to networking. It allowed me to tap into talents I didn't know that I had. So in being there, I meet people, I meet friends. I'm friends with a few indie designers, fashion designers, who I'm able to help pitch them to magazines. I'm able to go with them to parties and meet people and rub elbows with people who I never would have rubbed elbows with in South Carolina. And that was a huge blessing for me. I had a friend that had a fashion brand, and I just remember like loving her designs. She would let me wear all the samples. And I would reach out to shows like Wendy Williams, when Wendy Williams had a show at the time, all the things. And I'll never forget, I pitched Wendy Williams' stylist and ended up getting this brand I was working with, ended up getting their jersey dresses on Wendy Williams on the show. I'll never forget that. It was a huge deal. And so I tapped into the PR industry in that way. It just opened a lot of opportunities. Then I came in contact with my boy, Kendrell Bowman. If you're watching this, Kendrell, I love you. Like, you have no idea how you pushed me and exposed me to so much. At the time, he was K. Michelle's stylist. And so I would run around the city with him, pulling clothes. And it was in that particular opportunity of being his assistant that I realized that I really did not want to be in the fashion industry. So here I go, dropping out of nursing school, doing all of this to get to New York City, just to realize that I really don't want to be a fashion stylist. It looks cute on TV, but it is a brutal job. But by the time I came to that discovery, it had already sparked the entrepreneurial bug in me. And from my aunt's living room couch, I started my own business. I was creating graphics for people that I knew. I was doing a little bit of PR, writing press releases. And so the relationships and the experiences that I got in New York definitely catapulted me into a whole nother realm of knowing people, of being in rooms where I wasn't the smartest. And I will say that it has taken me from 2009, it is now 2026. All of what I've learned in New York, I still use today. I still have relationships with many of the people that I met there in LA and in all of the other cities where I was able to network and build relationships and work with certain people and work with certain brands. And so that is a lot of the reason why my mindset and mentality is the way that it is. It's the reason why I always tell people leaving my hometown was the best thing that I could have done, because even though I'm back in my hometown, I feel like I'm not limited to what I can do because a lot of my network is not in my hometown. And that's not a bad thing if you are doing it the opposite way. But for me, it was such a huge blessing because I was like a really shy girl. Like, really didn't talk that much, really hated being in spaces where I was forced to speak. And being in New York just changed me. And so it's a full circle moment for me. It feels like I've taken the long way home essentially because I'm back home, but New York is where it all started for me. And I'm going there this week as a whole different person with a whole different mindset and mentality. But everything I've accomplished since 2009 in New York City is a result of me living in New York City. And so I'm just so excited, and I'm so grateful to be able to sit down and share my story again with a different perspective. So, being in New York City again exposed me to certain networks, certain people, certain opportunities. I start my first business, Eloquence Enterprises, right from my aunt's living room couch. And then I kind of get tired of New York, and I'm like, my brain is starting to go in 50 directions. And I'm thinking about all of the amazing experiences I have in the city. And I'm like, why can't we have this in South Carolina? So I moved back to South Carolina, and I've got this grand idea to take my New York City life and expose my city to it. And I will say that is when I first started experiencing rejection. I come back here. I planned my first event called Unmaster Swag. It was supposed to be like a New Year's Eve black tie event. I promoted using all of my PR skills. I wrote press releases. I created this website with like inspo pics for outfits, all the things. I wanted it to have a coat check because in New York City in the winter and fall, they have coat checks. You don't have to wear your coat in the club all night. And so I just wanted that New York City experience, but I wanted it here in Charleston. And so I reach out to this DJ, book this DJ. All these people tell me they're coming, even though my ticket sales said otherwise. But, I didn't know nothing about that at the time. New Year's Eve gets here that night. Nobody shows up except like the one person that actually bought a ticket online. I didn't have no family, friends except my parents, my best friend at the time, Chavis, my sister, and my two best friends from college show up. And in that moment, I felt like a failure. I'm like, I thought what I learned in New York was going to take me everywhere I needed to be. That was the first time I felt like I had done everything right. And the people who I thought were supposed to support me the most ended up not supporting me in the way that I thought they should support me. And although that was my first real moment of rejection, it also instilled in me more tough skin. It instilled in me this idea that even if you have good ideas, they all will not thrive and do well. And so over the years, that one particular event and the failure of that event really just taught me that you should not have good ideas and execute on them. You're going to win some and you're going to lose some. And so over the years, I have lost a lot. I have not been as successful in certain things. I'm not living the white picket fence life that some people would say at my age I should have. But that event taught me rejection, but that event also taught me to dream big even if the dreams fail. And so I will say that that was like my first big lesson coming out of New York City. And I will say New York gave me the confidence to come to a whole nother city and say that I had a dream and a goal and a plan and have the guts and the nerves to actually execute on it. So I'm really grateful for that. So after this particular event failure, I shut down for a couple of years. I didn't want to go anywhere. I felt like a failure. I was embarrassed. I lost my drive and my light a little bit, if I could be honest. I was very offended. I didn't want to talk to nobody. I felt like before I went to New York, I supported all of these people and they did not support me. And so I held on to that offense and that hurt for a very long time until my network started reaching out to me for business. That same business I started on my aunt's living room couch, although I was not in New York anymore, I still had people calling me, asking me to work with me. And it kind of put the battery back in my back to say, all right, you failed, get up, let's move again. And that's exactly what I did. And so that started the whole girl boss era for me, where I was able to write my first book at 7 months pregnant. It was a book all about starting your business with no money. At this time, I was working in the banking industry, and I would say I was the youngest in my department. And these older women would see me hustling on the weekends, doing events, selling products and services, and they'd always ask, like, how are you starting this business and working this full-time job? And so I took those questions and I turned it into my first book. So when I got pregnant, I knew that I needed some passive income. And so that was really why I wrote the book. And the book did really well. We were able to do TV interviews locally in the upstate South Carolina area. It just did it took a whole life of its own. So after I wrote the first book, I now have this media mogul mindset where I know that I want to be in media. I want to create content. This was before content was like really a thing. And so immediately after I wrote that first book and I saw the media exposure it got, and I saw how I could take my life experiences and turn them into products and make money, but also impact people, it just really put a battery in my back. And I envisioned myself writing TV shows, creating TV shows, producing, being in front and behind the camera. And so I had this dream to go on TV sets, to envision myself in that space. And so the opportunity comes about for me to film as an extra for the hit TV show at the time on Fox called Empire with Taraji P. Henson and Terrence Howard. It was, yes, the opportunity came about, but I was broke, okay? I was broke. I tell my audience, look, I've got this amazing opportunity to be an extra on this TV show, but I don't have the money. And I think I was trying to raise like $2,000. Y'all, I raised not only $2,000 plus some. People started sharing it. People I didn't know was supporting my GoFundMe. Needless to say, we get to Chicago. We filmed for Empire. It was an amazing experience. On my way back home from Empire, I get this idea to write my second book called Dare to Live Your Dreams. And I talked about that experience going to Chicago. And then some years go by. I'm continuing to build my brand. I'm having all this success. I'm booking clients. My business is growing. My business is thriving. And then I write my third book called Brain You Like a Boss in 2017. That book immediately hits Amazon bestsellers list on the first day in 3 categories. So now I'm a best-selling author. I did this massive marketing rollout. And at this time, I am climbing in influence. People know my name. People are booking me to speak. I get my first corporate speaking engagement with TD Bank and then Google. And all doing the work of just me sharing my life experiences and showing other people how to live life, use your life story to make impact and income. That was my whole tagline. That was my whole mission. And I did it well until it started feeling like a burden. Until I started not finding fulfillment, until I started getting burnt out, and the burnout would last for months and I could not shake it, and I could not shake it, and I could not shake it. And I want to say, I think God started working on my heart and my intentions and my mindset like 4 years ago. I think the video is still up on YouTube. I posted a video in my last apartment and I was like, I've changed. Things are not the same for me anymore. Like, I don't want this life anymore. I just was not finding fulfillment in it. But the hustler in me would not stop. I didn't know any other way of living. I didn't know that you could take a break and still be productive. I didn't know that you could do more deep, meaningful work. But I couldn't quite put my finger on it. I just was calling it burnout. And so fast forward, I end up having to move out of my apartment because I just simply could not afford it. I mean, and it was my dream apartment. I was creating content over there. My friends were coming over and creating content, but I could not afford the rent. Like the rent just kept going up. So when it was time to renew my lease, I ended up moving out and moving back at home with my mom. And in 2024, I had this great corporate job in the construction industry, and I ended up losing that job. Like, went to work one day, and at 4 o'clock, my boss called me in and basically let me go with no real explanation. And the very next morning, I pull up to Barnes and Noble because I had a couple of books that I wanted to check out. And I get there and I read the back of these books, and I'm like, yeah, I don't really think I want these. So now I'm just like scrolling through like the book section, and I come across this book called Simply Pray by Deb Hopper. Shout out to Deb. And out of all of the books that I had picked up and read the back, this book grabbed my attention. It was so simple. I could tell that it was going to be an easy read. And she had autographed the copy, and it was the only one in the store. So I was like, okay, I think this is my sign to get this book. I picked that book up, and that book changed my life immediately. The simplicity in praying, and it was almost like God was saying to me, before you build anything else, before you move to the next chapter, before you pivot for the 1,000th time, you need to sit with me and you need to learn how to pray, because this is your source. Now, I grew up in church. My mom's a minister, okay? I am not short on the church, growing up in the church experience. I knew God, but I did not have a real personal relationship with him. And I think he took me through a season of, one, not having a job, to getting a really good, nice paying salary job and losing that job with no explanation. It was almost like he was telling me, now, for the last couple of years, I've been trying to sit you down. I've been trying to help you to build a foundation that won't shake, but you just won't sit. So now I'm going to make you sit. So that happened. I read that book. I start praying different. I start making these prayer cards where I was being very specific about how I was feeling. I was being very specific on different areas of my life that I wanted God to fix and tear down and rebuild. And he did that. And so around this time, I'm going through all of these tests to possibly be a kidney donor for my cousin. And that process really forced me to check my heart. And I'm not going to go in the nitty gritty of that, because the very first episode of this podcast, I talk about that experience where I really had to ask myself really hard questions. I really had to do many heart checks to make sure that the reason I was doing this tremendous act, that it was coming from a good place, that my heart was in a good place. And that just kind of took me on a whole nother roller coaster. And so, of course, that happened. And then I had to recover from that, which meant I couldn't hustle like I used to. I was forced to sit with God for a long time before I came back out on the scene. And so fast forward now, here we are in 2026. Last year was like the first year that I kind of, started trying to figure out my groove again, understanding that when I started in New York all those years ago, the idea was just to hustle and make money. And now here I am. Last year, I released my first product, I like to say, in my new life with Christ. It was a prayer journal that was literally birthed from me handwriting Philippians 4:6 every day in a regular notebook and turning that into a product and kind of re-emerging in, I won't even say in the marketplace, but in the world, re-emerging with a different mindset, understanding that all these years that I've chased purpose, that I now understand that my purpose aside from God doesn't mean anything, really. And I understand now that my life should be a testimony of what it means to rest in Christ, to surrender, to stop trying to control every aspect. I know it's hard, and how to make sure that your foundation is solid, so that when the winds blow, so that when the trees shake, so that when your career might take a shift, when your dreams don't play out the way that you want them to, that you'll understand that all things work together for the good of those who love Christ and are called, and that he uses everything. He uses the good, the bad, the ugly. He uses the beginning. He uses the middle. He uses those times where you take a leap of faith and you fall flat on your face. He uses the high moments. He uses the relationships that you thought were dead. He uses all of the rooms that you walked in. All of those things matter. And now just looking back at New York and going back there this week after it's been years since I've been back there, it is a true full circle moment. I feel like I've taken the long way home. And although I am not where I want to be, honestly, I'm still between my parents. So it's like back then I was on my mom's couch. Right now I'm on my mom's couch, but it's a different feeling. I'm on my mom's couch right now as a whole new person. I understand my identity. I know who I am. I know what my purpose is, no matter whose couch I'm on, no matter if I'm at a high point, no matter if I'm at a low point, no matter if I am accomplishing all of my goals or if I feel stagnant. I belong exactly where I am, and home is literally wherever God has you sitting right now. It will not be wasted. And so I'm grateful that I am home again because it has allowed me the freedom to rest. It has allowed me the village to help raise Tyler. It has allowed me not a perfect life, but an easier life in terms of knowing that I don't control my life and that every day that I wake up and I try and I put one foot in front of the other, that I am on my way to be wherever he wants me to be. And I am super grateful for that. And so I want to end with this. If you're trying to skip the process, do yourself a favor and stick it out. Understand that the process is where it's at. The process is what you have to go through to come to these realizations, to have these full circle moments, and that no part of your journey is on accident. No part of your journey will not or cannot be used. And if you keep putting one foot in front of the other, if you go through life's chapters and you keep flipping the page without forgetting what happened in the previous chapter, you will find purpose in whatever you're doing. You will find clarity as you go. But I believe that God moves when we move. I believe that when we step out on faith, whether we have the full picture or not, that is what he requires. That is what he requires to breathe fresh wind on us. And so even though I'm not where I want to be, even though you may not be where you want to be right now, understand that God moves in movement, okay? What he requires from us is faith. And faith is not seeing the full picture. Faith is getting up every day, doing what you can, and trusting that he will not let you fall. And I thank God that he has not let me fall in these 15 plus years since I dropped out of college. It has just been a blessing. There have been a lot of highs and a lot of lows, but I feel so much more confident in my story because my story is my story. My story, every single chapter from New York on to now, where I am sitting today on this podcast, it was all for my good and his glory, and I'm so grateful for that. So as I prepared to go back to New York, I don't think about it the same way anymore. I used to think that this was a place that would somehow be everything and I have it all figured out. But I see it so differently now. I feel like my life wasn't missed in any chapters. I didn't take any wrong turns. I just took the long way home. And maybe that's what this really was about the whole time. Not a straight line, not a perfect plan, but it was forming me into who I actually needed to become. So if you're in a season where you feel like things are taking you longer than you thought, or you're not where you expected to be, I just want to remind you today you're not behind. You just might be in the middle of your own long way home too. And eventually you'll realize you were never lost, you were being led. If you enjoyed today's episode, do me a favor and subscribe if you aren't yet. Share with a friend and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening, and until next time, love and light.